The sound of the door being forced open echoed through the mansion like a gunshot. Vincent Harlow woke with a start, his heart racing, not understanding what was happening. It was 3 in the morning. Gruff voices flooded the hallway. Heavy footsteps climbed the marble staircase. He tried to reach the phone on the nightstand, but his hands were shaking so badly that he knocked the device onto the floor. "Where's the money, Harlow?" The voice came with a gigantic man who kicked open the bedroom door. 2 more entered behind him, one carrying a baseball bat, the other an iron bar. Vincent backed up until he hit the wall, feeling cold sweat run down his back. He had money, a lot of money, but at that moment his fortune meant absolutely nothing. "I don't have anything here, are you crazy?" Vincent stammered, trying to keep his voice steady. The man with the bat stepped forward, raising the weapon. That was when a voice cut through the air. A voice Vincent would never have imagined hearing at that moment. "Be quiet." It was Isaac, the 12-year-old son of his housekeeper Joanna. The boy stood in the bedroom doorway, his eyes fixed on Vincent. It was not a request. It was an order. Vincent opened his mouth to protest, but something in the boy's gaze made him obey. Isaac entered the room with a disturbing calm for someone so young facing 3 armed criminals. "You're in the wrong house," Isaac said, turning to the intruders. His voice was firm, without fear. "The person who owes you money doesn't live here. He lives 3 blocks down, number 847. House with a green gate." The men looked at each other, confused. The leader frowned. "How do you know that, kid?" "Because my uncle works for the man who sent you here," Isaac replied without hesitation. "And he's going to be very angry when he finds out you broke into the wrong house and wasted the whole night." There was a tense silence. Vincent was paralyzed, watching that black, skinny, barefoot boy face 3 grown men as if he were negotiating on a school playground. The group's leader looked at his partners, then back at Isaac. Something in the boy's confidence made him step back. "If you're lying, kid." "I'm not," Isaac cut in. "But if you want to waste more time here, that's your problem." The men hesitated for a few more endless seconds. Then, as if they had made a silent decision, they retreated. They went down the stairs with the same violence with which they had come up. The front door slammed. A car engine roared in the street. And then, silence. Vincent slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, shaking. Isaac remained standing in the same place, arms crossed, as if nothing had happened. The businessman looked at the boy, trying to process what he had just witnessed. That boy had saved his life. But how? Why? And where did so much courage come from? "You," Vincent began, his voice still unsteady. "You just... How did you know?" "I didn't," Isaac replied, finally moving. He walked to the window and looked outside, making sure the men were really gone. "I made it up. But they believed me because I didn't show fear. Fear attracts more violence." Vincent was stunned. 12 years old. The boy was 12 years old and had just fooled 3 armed criminals with a convincing lie. More than that, he had saved the life of a man who barely knew he existed. Vincent had lived in that mansion for 5 years. Isaac had lived there with his mother since Joanna was hired. But in 5 years, Vincent had never truly talked to the boy. He had never asked his name, his age, his dreams. To Vincent, Isaac was invisible. Just the maid's son. "Why did you do this?" Vincent asked, still sitting on the floor. Isaac turned around, and for the first time his face showed something beyond calm. There was sadness there. "Because my mother likes working here. And if something happened to you, she would lose her job." The answer hit like a punch to the stomach. There was no romantic heroism. There was no gratitude or respect. Just the cold pragmatism of someone who had learned too early that the world gives nothing for free. Vincent felt a deep shame rise in his chest. He had been saved not by kindness, but by necessity. And that truth hurt more than any iron bar. Isaac left the room without saying anything else, leaving Vincent alone with his thoughts and with a question that would not let him sleep for the rest of the night. Who was that boy, and what else did he hide? If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Tell us here in the comments what you think so far and which city or country you're watching from. Your participation makes all the difference. When the sun rose, Vincent was still awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the door through which Isaac had left. Vincent spent the next day unable to concentrate on anything. He cancelled meetings, ignored calls, left emails unanswered. His mind always returned to the same scene. Isaac standing in the bedroom doorway, steady eyes, calm voice, facing 3 armed men as if it were the most natural thing in the world. No 12-year-old should have that kind of courage. Or that kind of coldness. Where did it come from? In the afternoon, as Joanna was going up the stairs carrying clean towels, Vincent called her. She stopped, surprised. In 5 years working in that house, the boss rarely spoke to her beyond basic day-to-day instructions. "Joanna, I need to talk about your son." Her face hardened immediately. Her shoulders tensed. "Did he do something wrong, Mr. Harlow? If he bothered you in any way, No, Vincent interrupted. He saved me. Last night, men broke into the house. Isaac, he drove them away. I don't know how, but he did it." Joanna closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them again, there were tears there. She placed the towels on a chair and sat down, suddenly looking exhausted. "I was afraid this would happen one day." "Afraid of what?" "That my son would need to protect someone again," she said, her voice breaking. "Isaac is not an ordinary child, Mr. Harlow. He grew up too fast. Far too fast for his age." Vincent pulled up a chair and sat in front of her, something he had never done before. "Explain that to me." Joanna took a deep breath. "Before working here, I lived in another city. In a dangerous neighborhood. Isaac's father left us when he was 3. I worked 2 jobs to pay the rent, but even so there was barely enough to eat. My brother, Daniel, lived with us. He had problems. Debts with dangerous people." Vincent felt a tightness in his chest. He was beginning to understand. "One night, the collectors showed up," Joanna continued, wiping her tears. "They broke into our house. My brother wasn't there. They started breaking things, threatening me. Isaac was 8 years old. 8. He came out of the bedroom, looked at those men, and said he knew where his uncle was. That he could take them to him. He lied. He took the men to the other side of the city, to the police station, and shouted for help. They ran away. But my brother, Daniel, disappeared after that. He never came back." The story fell on Vincent like a weight. "And you came here to start over." "To try to give my son a better life," Joanna said. "But he carries this. He carries the weight of having saved his own mother when he should have been playing. And now he saved you too." Vincent fell silent, processing it all. He had judged Isaac as just another invisible boy, part of the background of the house. But Isaac had more courage at 12 years old than Vincent had in his entire adult life. And he carried scars that no one should have to carry so young. "Where is he now?" Vincent asked. "In the little back room. Studying. He studies a lot. He says he's going to be a lawyer one day. That he's going to defend people like us." Vincent stood up. "May I talk to him?" Joanna hesitated, but nodded. The little back room was small, cramped, with a single bed, an old desk, and improvised shelves full of books. Isaac was bent over a notebook, solving math problems. He didn't even look up when Vincent came in. "I came to thank you," Vincent said. "You don't have to." "I do. You saved my life." "I saved my mother's job," Isaac corrected, finally looking at him. "Don't confuse things." The coldness in the boy's voice was unsettling. Vincent pulled the only chair in the room closer and sat down. "Your mother told me about what happened when you were 8. Isaac turned his eyes back to the notebook. "So what?" "So that no child should have to go through that." "Lots of kids go through worse things every day," Isaac said without emotion. "I was lucky. My mother got this job. I have a roof, food, I can study. There are people who don't have any of that." Vincent felt a lump in his throat. That boy spoke like an adult tired of life. "You're 12 years old, Isaac. You should be thinking about soccer, video games, friends." "I think about paying the bills when my mother gets too old to work," Isaac replied, looking directly at Vincent. "I think about finishing school, getting a scholarship, graduating in law, and never depending on anyone again. Those are my priorities." The silence that followed was heavy. Vincent realized he was facing someone far stronger than he would ever be. And he also realized something that deeply embarrassed him. He had everything, but had never done anything meaningful with his fortune. He just accumulated money, lived alone in that giant mansion, without purpose, without real connection to anything or anyone. What if I could help? Vincent asked. Isaac put down the pen and turned fully toward him. Help how? I don't know yet. But I want to do something. You saved my life. I want to repay you. I don't need charity, Isaac said, his voice hard. It's not charity. It's gratitude. It's recognition. Isaac studied Vincent's face for a long moment. Then he sighed. If you really want to help, hire my uncle. Vincent blinked, confused. Your uncle? I thought he had disappeared. He came back, Isaac said softly. He's living on the street 3 blocks from here. Clean now. Out of debt. But no one gives him a job because of his past. My mother sends food secretly. If you really want to do something useful, give him a chance. And it was at that moment that Vincent understood. Isaac didn't want anything for himself. He just wanted to protect the people he loved. Vincent spent the next 3 days investigating. He hired a discreet private detective, but not to spy on Isaac or Joanna. He wanted to understand who Daniel was, the boy's uncle. He needed to be sure before making any decision. The report arrived on a Thursday morning, detailed and surprising. Daniel was 32 years old. A former gambling addict, he had accumulated enormous debts with loan sharks over 5 years. His life had collapsed. He lost his job, his apartment, his dignity. But the report showed something unexpected. For the past 8 months, Daniel had been clean. He attended support meetings 3 times a week. He worked as a helper at a car wash for only a few hours a week, the only place willing to give him a chance. He slept in a public shelter. And every cent he earned, he saved in a savings account that had only one goal written in the description: Isaac's future. Vincent closed the report feeling something strange in his chest. Shame, perhaps. Or admiration. That man who had lost everything was fighting to rebuild his life, not for himself, but for his nephew. Meanwhile, Vincent had millions and had never done anything truly meaningful for anyone. That afternoon, without warning Joanna or Isaac, Vincent left the mansion driving his own car. He found Daniel at the car wash, a small rundown establishment on the outskirts of the city. The man was drying an old car, too thin, wearing worn-out clothes, but working with dedication. Vincent parked and watched for a few minutes before getting out. Daniel. The man turned, frowning. Yes? Can I help you? My name is Vincent Harlow. I'm your sister Joanna's employer. Daniel's face went pale. He dropped the cloth immediately and took a step back. Is she okay? Did something happen? She's perfectly fine, Vincent said quickly. I came to talk about you. Daniel lowered his eyes. Look, I know I'm not welcome near my family. I did terrible things. I put my sister and my nephew in danger. But I'm changing, sir. I'm trying. I know, Vincent interrupted. And that's why I'm here. I need someone to work on the maintenance of my property. Gardening, general repairs, external cleaning. Fixed salary, formal contract, housing included in a small house at the back of the property. Daniel blinked several times, as if he didn't understand the words. Sir, I don't understand. Why? Because your nephew asked me to, Vincent said simply. And because he deserves to have his uncle nearby. But I need a guarantee from you. No gambling, no debts, nothing that puts your family at risk again. One chance. Just one. Tears began to run down Daniel's dirty face. He covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking. Vincent stood there, witnessing a grown man cry in gratitude. When Daniel finally managed to speak, his voice was choked. I won't disappoint you. Or my family. I swear. Don't swear to me, Vincent said. Swear to Isaac. 2 days later, Daniel was living in the small house at the back of the property. Joanna cried when she saw her brother. They embraced for long minutes without saying anything, just feeling each other's presence after so much time apart. Isaac watched from a distance, arms crossed, his face unreadable. But when Daniel approached him, the boy allowed his uncle to hug him. And Vincent saw, for a brief second, Isaac's eyes shine with tears he refused to let fall. In the following weeks, something changed in the mansion. The house stopped being a cold, silent place. Daniel worked hard, always waking before sunrise, caring for the garden with almost religious dedication. Joanna seemed lighter, smiling as she prepared meals. And Isaac, for the first time since Vincent had known him, began to act like a 12-year-old child. He laughed at his uncle's jokes. He played ball in the garden. His guard began to lower. But Vincent knew it wasn't enough. He had given a job, yes. He had reunited a family. But that did not erase years of indifference. Years in which he had lived in that mansion without noticing the people around him. Without caring about their stories, their pain, their dreams. He needed to do more. He needed to truly change. That was when Vincent began to plan something in secret. Something that would change not only Isaac's life, but the future of many other children like him. During the nights, locked in his office, he began to design a project. He researched educational foundations, scholarship programs, mentoring for young people from underprivileged communities. He contacted lawyers, accountants, educators. And slowly, a plan began to take shape. He would create a foundation. Not just for Isaac, but for hundreds of children like him. Children who had immense potential but no opportunity. Children who grew up too fast because life gave them no choice. Vincent would allocate a significant part of his fortune to this. Not out of guilt. Not out of empty charity. But because Isaac had shown him something that none of his millionaire business colleagues had ever shown him. True courage comes from those who have nothing to lose, but choose to protect anyway. On the last night of preparation, Vincent looked out the office window. Down below, in the moonlit garden, Isaac and Daniel were playing ball. The boy was laughing. A sound Vincent had never heard before. And in that moment, he knew he was on the right path. All that remained was the perfect moment to reveal everything. The moment came on a rainy Saturday in October. Vincent gathered Joanna, Daniel, and Isaac in the living room, a huge room that was rarely used. They entered hesitantly, clearly confused. Joanna clasped her hands nervously. Daniel looked around as if he did not belong in that place. Isaac kept a neutral expression, but his eyes studied Vincent with distrust. "Please sit down," Vincent said, pointing to the sofa. "Did something happen?" Joanna asked, her voice trembling. "Did we do something wrong?" "No. On the contrary." Vincent took a deep breath. He had rehearsed that moment dozens of times, but now that he was there, the words felt insufficient. "You changed my life. And I want to change yours as well." He picked up a folder from the coffee table and opened it. Inside were documents, contracts, architectural plans. "Isaac, you told me you want to be a lawyer. That you want to defend people like you and your family. So I created something to make that possible. Not just for you, but for hundreds of other children." Vincent showed the documents. "This is the New Paths Foundation. An organization that will offer full scholarships, from elementary school through university, for children from underprivileged communities. Housing, food, school supplies, everything included. And you, Isaac, will be the first beneficiary." The silence that followed was absolute. Joanna covered her mouth with her hands, eyes wide. Daniel was frozen. But Isaac showed nothing. He just looked at the documents, then at Vincent, and said, "Why?" "Because you saved me," Vincent replied. "And you showed me that I was wasting my life being rich and empty. You are 12 years old and have more courage than I will have in my entire existence." "I don't want your pity," Isaac said, his voice cold. "It's not pity. It's justice." Vincent knelt in front of the boy, something he would never have imagined doing. "Isaac, you should be worried about homework and playing. But instead, you carry the weight of protecting your mother, of planning a future that should not be your responsibility. That isn't right. And I have the power to change that." "And what do you want in return?" Isaac asked, suspicious. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing." Vincent felt his eyes burn. "I just want you to be a child. To study without worrying about money. To dream big without fear. To become the lawyer you want to be. And later, if you want, help other children like you." That was when Isaac's mask finally cracked. His lips trembled. His eyes filled with tears he had held back for so long. "I'm very afraid," he whispered, his voice breaking for the first time. "Afraid of not making it. Of disappointing my mother. Of not being strong enough." Joanna knelt beside her son and hugged him tightly. "You are already stronger than anyone I know, my love. And you will never have to carry everything alone again." Daniel also stepped closer, placing a hand on his nephew's shoulder. "You gave me a second chance, kid. Now it's your turn to have a real first chance." Isaac cried. He cried like the child he was, but had forgotten how to be. Years of fear, responsibility, and forced maturity poured out in those tears. Vincent felt his own face wet. That boy had saved his life in two ways, physically on the night of the break-in, and spiritually by showing him what truly mattered. But the night still held another surprise. When the emotions finally settled, Vincent pulled out another envelope. "Joanna, this is for you. The deed to the house at the back of the property, in your name. And Daniel, here is your permanent contract, with a fair salary and all benefits." Joanna looked at the deed in disbelief. "Mr. Harlow, I can't accept this." "Yes, you can. And you will," Vincent said firmly. "Because you are not my employees. You are my family now. The only real family I have." That was when the front door opened. Vincent had planned that too. A woman entered, around 30 years old, carrying a folder. Premature gray hair, kind eyes, a warm smile. "Sorry for the intrusion. My name is Laura. I'm a social worker and educational coordinator. I came to meet Isaac and explain how the scholarship program will work." Isaac wiped his tears and stood up, trying to regain his composure. Laura extended her hand. "I've heard a lot about you. About your courage, your intelligence, your dreams. And I want to tell you something, you will succeed. Not because you are strong, but because now you have people by your side who believe in you." She opened the folder and showed photos of a private school, one of the best in the region. "You start on Monday. Uniform, materials, everything is already prepared. And every week you'll have sessions with mentors, real lawyers, who will guide you." Isaac looked at Vincent, and for the first time, smiled. A genuine, childlike smile, full of hope. "Thank you," he said, his voice still trembling. "I won't disappoint you." "You could never disappoint me," Vincent replied. "Because you already taught me the most important thing. Money is worth nothing if it isn't used to change lives." That night, the four of them had dinner together for the first time. Not as boss and employees, but as family. They laughed, talked, made plans. And when Isaac finally went to sleep, he held Vincent's hand for a moment and whispered, "You saved me too." Vincent realized that the 12-year-old boy was right. They had saved each other. And that was only the beginning of a journey that would transform not only their lives, but the lives of many other people as well. 6 months later, Vincent's mansion had completely transformed. It was no longer a mausoleum of loneliness and empty wealth. It was a home. Mornings began with the smell of coffee prepared by Joanna, who now cooked not out of obligation, but out of pleasure. Daniel took care of the garden with pride and had started giving gardening lessons to young people from the Foundations program on weekends. And Isaac, well, Isaac was flourishing in ways no one had imagined possible. The boy who had grown up too fast was finally learning how to be a child. He made friends at his new school. He joined the debate team. His grades were exceptional, but more important than that, he smiled. He laughed out loud. He played. And still, he kept that fierce determination to become a lawyer, only now without the crushing weight of fear. Vincent was on the porch when Isaac came home from school one spring afternoon. The boy dropped his backpack on the ground and sat beside him, something he did often now. "I had an idea," Isaac said, looking toward the horizon. "Tell me. The foundation is helping a lot of kids, right? But what about their mothers? And their uncles, their siblings? People like my mom and Uncle Daniel need chances too." Vincent turned to him, impressed. "What are you suggesting?" "A job placement program. Training courses, help finding employment. There's no point in helping only the children if the adults around them continue without opportunities." Vincent felt his chest fill with pride. "You're 12 years old and you already think like a leader." I think like someone who lived through it, Isaac corrected. And I know my mother is the smartest person I know, but she never had a chance to study. I know my uncle is hardworking, but people only see his past. There are a lot of people like that. Then let's do it, Vincent said. I'll add this program to the foundation. And when you grow up, if you want, you can help manage everything. Isaac smiled. When I grow up, I'm going to be a lawyer. But I can do both. That night, during dinner, Vincent made an announcement. I have news. The New Paths Foundation has just received approval to expand. Now we will serve not only children, but also their families. Professional training, psychological support, mentoring. And all of this was Isaac's idea. Joanna looked at her son with tears in her eyes. My boy. I'm not that much of a boy anymore, Mom, Isaac said, but he was smiling. Daniel raised his glass of juice. A toast. To the bravest boy I know. And to the man who had the courage to change. They toasted, and Vincent felt something he had never felt before in his entire life of luxury and financial success: belonging, purpose, love. In the months that followed, the foundation grew exponentially. 50 children in the first year, 120 in the second, 300 in the third. Each with their own stories of struggle, each deserving of a chance. And alongside them, dozens of adults finding new paths, new professions, new dignity. Vincent drastically reduced his personal business ventures to dedicate himself to the foundation full-time. He lost contacts in the corporate world, but gained something infinitely more valuable: true respect. Not respect bought with money or power, but respect earned through genuine action. On a special night, 3 years after the break-in that changed everything, the foundation organized a graduation ceremony for the young people who had completed high school. Isaac, now 15, was among them, not because he had finished high school yet, but because he had been invited to give a speech as a representative of the beneficiaries. Vincent, Joanna, and Daniel were in the front row. Isaac stepped onto the stage, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the packed audience. His voice, which had ordered a billionaire to be quiet years earlier, now echoed with authority and emotion. When I was 12 years old, 3 men broke into the house where my mother worked. I was afraid. Very afraid. But something inside me said I couldn't let them take the little we had. So I pretended to be brave. And it worked. He paused, looking directly at Vincent. But the real courage wasn't in me that night. It was in the man who, after that, decided not just to thank me, but to completely change his life. Mr. Vincent Harlow could have given me money and forgotten about it. But he chose to do something bigger. He chose to see invisible people. He chose to turn privilege into purpose. The audience applauded. Isaac waited for silence to return. All of us here are proof that one person can make a difference. But we are also proof that we need one another. I saved Mr. Vincent that night. But he saved me from a lifetime of struggle without hope. And now, all of us have the responsibility to save others. To extend a hand. To not look away. When Isaac came down from the stage, Vincent hugged him tightly. You became exactly who I knew you would be. Someone extraordinary. I became who I always was, Isaac corrected, just now with opportunities to show it. That night, on the way home, the 4 of them talked about the future. Isaac spoke about law school entrance exams. Daniel about new community gardening projects. Joanna about the cooking classes she would begin teaching for the training program. And Vincent, for the first time in decades, spoke about happiness. You know, I had everything and had nothing, he said. Until a 12-year-old boy taught me that true wealth isn't in the bank. It's in the people you love and help. If you made it this far, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave a comment telling us what you thought of this story and which city or country you're watching from. Stories like this need to be shared. Life is not measured by what we accumulate, but by what we plant in the hearts of others. And sometimes, the greatest fortune we can have is someone brave enough to tell us, be quiet and learn.